I'd spent every Saturday tending my veggie patch, tomatoes heavy on the vine, kale crisp as morning air, and squash big enough to feed a small army. Neighbors drooled over my bumper crop. I even shared zucchini bread with Mrs. Patel. Life was good until Karen waltzed over. She stood at my fence, clipboard in hand, eyes narrower than slits. Your garden violates Section 4.2, she declared. No home agricultural plots larger than 5 square feet. I looked at my 200 square foot wonderland. Her rulebook even had a footnote. Vegetation must not exceed nursery potted plants. She slapped a $150 fine notice on my gate. You have 72 hours to comply. I blinked. Remove my kale? Rip out my cherry tomatoes? I felt rage blossom faster than her weeds, but instead of ripping up the beds, I hatched a plan. If she wanted to kill my garden, I'd kill her front yard, in the friendliest way possible. First, I printed flyers on recycled paper. Community Farm Co-op launch. Free veggies, all welcome. I slipped one under every door, including Karen's. That afternoon, she found hers and crumpled it like a bad weed. I heard her mutter, absurd, while the rest of the block buzzed with excitement. Next, I set up a makeshift stand in her lawn, her prized lawn, complete with folding tables, crates of lettuce, carrots, peppers, and a chalkboard sign. Fresh harvest, help yourself. By 9 a.m. the next day, neighbors arrived with baskets and bags. Mrs. Garcia snagged a bunch of basil. The kids chased runaway radishes across the grass. Mr. Lee texted me, best yard sale ever. On her porch, Karen clutched her clipboard, mouth open like she'd swallowed a live frog. I waved at her. Welcome to the co-op, Karen. She glared. This is private property, I shrugged. Actually, your homeowner's map shows that strip as common greenbelt. I checked. I held up the map on my phone. Neighbors lined up behind me. Karen stomped inside. Over the next 2 days, I organized garden workshops on her turf. Free soil tests, seed swaps, canning demos. Local master gardeners showed up. We grafted tomato plants, pressed flower samples, and even held a blindfolded taste test of heirloom beans. Laughter echoed through the street. Karen peeked from her window, looking more furious than a rotting potato. On day 3, she delivered another notice: cease all activity or face $300 daily fines. I nailed it to the side of my shed next to a new sign. Karen's Fines Fund goes to community garden. I posted an update on the neighborhood app. Fines fuel our food bank donations. Thanks, Karen. Comments poured in. LOL. More veggies. Brilliant. That night, I recruited the local food bank. They rolled in a truck and filled crates with surplus produce. I handed Karen's fine check to the coordinator, who waved and said, "This makes a difference." I posted a photo. Your dollars, Karen, feeding families. By Friday, the co-op had a volunteer board, weekly meetups, and even a compost corner. Karen's lawn was lush with tomato plants and carrot tops, ironic given her stance. She tried to pull up a few seedlings under the cover of darkness, but the motion sensor spotlight I'd installed caught her mid-dig. I played the night camera clip at Saturday's sunrise seedling sale. Neighbors hooted. Karen froze on screen, trowel in hand. Face flaming red, she stormed from the meeting. I held a plate of zucchini fritters and called, "Sample taste?" She spat the fritter out. "I want this stopped," she yelled. I smiled. "Stop! These plants grow fast. Ever heard of crop rotation?" She retreated to her house. The co-op volunteers cheered, high-fived, and dug into eggplant parmigiana. My garden had won, and her front yard had become the freshest, most delicious community spot anyone could ask for. The only question now, what would Karen do next? By Monday, the co-op was more popular than a backyard barbecue. I woke at dawn to find neighbors setting up tables on Karen's lawn, beds of basil, bins of beets, baskets of bright bell peppers. Word had spread to 2 blocks over. Even the high school robotics team pitched in, building extra raised beds. The air buzzed with excitement. Seed packets swapped, compost chatter, and more thank you smiles than I'd ever seen. Karen, of course, fumed in her kitchen, coffee cold in hand. She stormed out mid-morning, waving a new violation notice like a trophy, yelling, "You're trespassing on private property." I strolled over, wiped soil off my hands, and said, "Actually, this greenbelt is zoned for communal use. See plot C14 on the HOA map?" She yanked the map from my hand and squinted. "That's for walking paths," she spat, "not vegetable farms." But the map never said no veggies. Neighbors circled around her, nodding. Mrs. Garcia pointed to her fancy ukulele and said, "We need our greens and our jams." The crowd let out a happy "ooh." Karen's eyes darted. She turned and marched back inside. Next, Karen tried chemical warfare. At dusk, I found unwanted fertilizer, read weed killer, sprinkled in one bed. I snapped the culprit with my phone cam, Karen's matching gardening gloves and all. By morning, a volunteer pulled the tainted soil out and replaced it with fresh compost. We slapped a no pesticide zone sign over the co-op entrance and offered free plant rescue kits to anyone who wanted healthy starts. Karen escalated again, this time with legal firepower. She hired a lawyer to draft a cease and desist cultivation order, claiming my co-op endangered her property value. The letter arrived Friday, just before our Pick Your Own event. I tucked it under a zucchini leaf, then joined neighbors handing out clipping shears and paper bags. Kids sprinted to the beet patches. Teens snapped selfies mid-harvest. A dozen dogs, unsuspecting of past dog park wars, sniffed parsley like it was treasure. When Karen showed up in her blazer and stilettos, she found a line of 15 people waiting to harvest kale. She glared at their gardening gloves and green aprons. "You're breaking the law," she shrieked. I stepped forward, trowel in hand. "Actually, we're following city-approved urban agriculture codes," I said. "Our permits signed, stamped, and posted." I motioned to the framed permit hanging under her bedroom window where she couldn't miss it. She covered her eyes with one hand, then yanked the permit down. A gust of wind carried it across the street into my yard. Instead of letting her rain on our parade, I took a cue from guerrilla gardeners. I broadcast a live feed of the co-op on the neighborhood chat, complete with drone footage of rows of lettuce and ripening tomatoes. Comments poured in, "Looks amazing. I'm so jealous. When's the next event?" Karen's name popped up in the chat. This is illegal, but 200 neighbors quickly buried her with supportive emojis and "grow on" messages. That evening, I organized a harvest potluck at sunset. We set long tables on Karen's lawn under string lights, plates piled high with ratatouille, tabbouleh, and gazpacho. I carved a huge wooden sign, "Cook with us, table for all." At the head of the table, I left a place card for Karen, reserved for understanding community. She peeked out her window, her reflection dim in the glass. As the first forkfuls were tasted, laughter rose like steam from a soup pot. Neighbors toasted our collective bounty. A friend passed the microphone to me. I stood in my muddy boots and said, "Thanks to everyone, especially Karen, for showing us what happens when one person tries to stop the power of plants." The crowd cheered. I looked at Karen's darkened windows, wished she could join, and whispered, "Earth's more fun than clipboard wars." Late that night, I found a small potted basil plant on my porch with a note. "I'm sorry. Can I try? Karen." I planted it in the co-op bed next morning and labeled it Karen's first crop. The battle lines had been drawn, then redrawn in green. But the war was far from over. Karen's next move would have to be even bolder. By the third week, the co-op was full throttle. Every morning, I found neighbors picking cherry tomatoes, kale leaves, and squash blossoms. We had sign-ups for soup groups, canning clubs, even a farm-to-table brunch planned for Sunday. Karen's yard looked like a green runway. Beds lined up in neat rows, carrots peeking from the soil, and fresh herbs smelling up the block. That didn't stop Karen. One dawn, she crept across her porch in a trench coat and night vision goggles, armed with a garden hose. She aimed it at the beds, hoping high-pressure water would wash away our work. Instead, she blasted a few leaves off a volunteer's jacket and soaked her own slippers. The hose kinked under her foot, spraying her in the face. She sprinted back inside, dripping and furious. Neighbors watched from the street, snorting with laughter. I posted the security cam clip to our neighborhood chat. Karen's midnight watering. It went viral in our cul-de-sac group. Comments like LOL and Garden-zilla flooded in. No one felt bad for her. She'd chosen to be the villain. Next, Karen tried chemical sabotage. She dumped a bag of sawdust on 2 beds, claiming it was natural mulch. We dug it out and replaced it with fresh compost. One neighbor quipped, "Thanks for the extra dirt, Karen." We even used the sawdust to build new walkways. On her 4th visit, she left a stack of flyers in the co-op beds. "Ban backyard farming, sign here." She stuck them into the soil like protest flags. Volunteers pulled them out, read them aloud at our weekly planning meeting, and used them as bookmarks in our gardening manuals. We never got any signatures. Then came Karen's loudest move yet. She arranged for a drone operator to fly over our garden every day, filming us like reality TV stars. The drone buzzed overhead, dropping leaflets that read, "Smile for the co-op cam." I finally caught the drone's controls and gently guided it toward her house. It hovered near her window, gave a final beep, then flew off. Neighbors cheered. Karen peeked through the blinds, shocked. By now, local businesses got involved. The corner bakery donated free garden rolls every Saturday. The hardware store sold co-op members discounted tools. We set up a donation box for the food pantry, and our harvest feed program grew. Everyone pitched in, and the co-op felt more like a festival than a complaint war. Still, Karen refused to give up. She lobbied the city to enforce the no-farm rule, but the city clerk pointed out that small urban farms were encouraged. The clerk even posted our story on the city's website as a success example. Karen seethed in her living room, flipping through her HOA handbook like it held the answer. On a bright Wednesday, I invited Karen to the co-op as guest of honor for a garden tour. I slid an invitation under her door. "Come see for yourself, tomorrow at 6. She showed up, arms folded, sunglasses on. I led her through the beds, pointing out heirloom tomatoes, Swiss chard, and herbs. Volunteers passed out mint lemonade and cucumber water. She sniffed a basil leaf, and I heard her mumble, "It smells nice." At the end of the tour, I handed her a small potted pepper plant in a painted pot. The tag read, "Karen's pepper, grow with us." She stared at it. The crowd fell silent. Then someone clapped. Others joined in. A volunteer offered her a seat and a plate of roasted peppers. She took a cautious bite, eyes widening at the flavor. For the first time, Karen smiled. It was tiny, but real. She looked at the community around her, friends, neighbors, laughter, and her own lawn full of fresh green life. She folded her pepper plant to her chest. I'm sorry," she whispered. I nodded and said, "Welcome to the co-op." Then the crowd cheered as fireworks, gifted by the hardware store, lit up the sky over the garden. Karen stood there, pepper plant in hand, tears in her eyes. The war was over. After Karen's tearful "I'm sorry," the co-op's golden chapter began. We renamed her former private lawn the Community Harvest Hub. Volunteers built a small tool shed for shared garden gear. Every weekend, neighbors swapped seeds, traded tips, and feasted on fresh greens under the pergola strung with fairy lights. Karen didn't vanish. She rose as our honorary garden ambassador. Each Saturday, she offered guided tours pointing out new crops, purple basil, rainbow chard, baby cucumbers. Kids gathered around her as she told them how to press flowers and mulch bean rows. She even led a kitchen herb workshop, teaching neighbors to jar pesto and herb butter blends. The HOA, impressed by our unity and volunteer hours donated to the local food bank, rewrote its bylaws. Home agriculture encouraged, plots permitted up to 500 square feet. Communal use of HOA greenbelts approved. They posted a photo of Karen pressing her handprint into the new plaque. Underneath, in honor of growth, community, and second chances. We held a block party to celebrate. Tables groaned under heirloom tomato salads, zucchini fritters, and carrot cake. Karen's first pepper plant had grown into a thriving bush. She chopped its fruit into spicy salsa that flew off the table. Neighbors clinked mason jar cocktails, and the local jazz trio serenaded us beneath a sunset glow. That night, as lanterns flickered across the garden beds, I found Karen at the very end of her old lawn row, trowel in hand, planting sunflower seeds. She looked up, smiled, and said, "Thank you for teaching me more about soil than any clipboard ever could." I handed her a small shovel. "Ready for the next season?" She nodded, eyes bright. And just like that, the feud turned into fertile friendship, proving that sometimes the deepest roots grow from the smallest seeds, and the best revenge is a garden where everyone can bloom.